So post surgery, I decided I'm going to do all of those things that I hadn't done before, right? I hadn't done it because I was heavy. I didn't like the way that I looked. I still had confidence and everything. I can be a smart person, but most of the time, but I have confidence, and so I was doing things like, my job was good, and I had good friends, and that type of thing. But there was just a lot of things I didn't do. Hikes, for example, I didn't ride a bike because sitting on a bike, I didn't care how much cushion was on that seat. That was not going to happen. That it was just too hard. So post surgery, I said, you know what, I'm going to do this, right? I'm going to do things that I never thought I would do before. And so, like, one of the very first things I did, um, there's a musical group that I follow. They're the Mavericks, and Raul Malo is the lead singer. And I've been following them for 30 some odd years. Okay. And I go to a lot of concerts. I love live music. And I've never seen the Mavericks, mostly because they play the East Coast. So they were playing two nights in Charleston, South Carolina. I have a sister who lives in Charleston, South Carolina. So I emailed her and I said, "Hey, the Mavericks are playing. You should go see them." And she's like, "Who?" I'm like, "Who? The Mavericks." And then I thought, "Oh man, I should go see the Mavericks." And so I literally, like, within the next 15 minutes, I had bought round trip tickets, rented a car, arranged to stay with my sister, got tickets to the show, and I flew to South Carolina to see the Mavericks on a Friday and Saturday night. And it was so cool. But the one thing that made the difference, okay? Have you ever seen the movie with Jim Carrey called The Mask? And he puts this mask on, right? And he becomes this different,
Right.
surreal sort of life. So I thought, oh, well, it would be fun to dress up, because now, I had, at that point, I was about 5 or 6 months post surgery, and I'd lost probably 50 or 60 pounds at that point. Um, and I thought, I'm going to get some new clothes. So, but I didn't know what would fit me, right? Because I hadn't been trying new clothes. I'd been mostly still wearing like sweatpants and sweatshirts and things like that, because I knew my body was changing. I didn't want to invest a lot of money in my wardrobe at that point. And so I went out on Amazon, and I was looking for an inexpensive suit. And I kind of wanted it to be serious, right? But then I found these suits from OPPO suits. Oh my goodness. This thing was crazy. Like, it had a keyboard, piano, yeah, keyboard, and all kinds of musical notes and all these. Just it was just wackadoodle. And it had pants, a jacket, and a tie. I thought, oh, that's it. So I bought this suit, got it tailored, and I'll tell you what, it was every bit the Mask from Jim Carrey. When I walked in this suit, it took me 20 minutes to go from the door to the bar, and it was only like 9 steps. Everybody thought I was the keyboard player in the Mavericks. His name's JD McFadden, and he wears clothes like that. They thought I was him. And then when they found out I wasn't, they still wanted to get a selfie with me because of this suit. It was crazy. Even the band noticed me uh, from on the stage. They saw me because I had like front row tickets, because it was just a single ticket, easy to get. And afterwards, they found me and they had their pictures taken with me. And so then the next night, I went Saturday night, and my sister, as I was leaving, she says, "Well, what if people recognize you?" I'm like, that would be so cool. And so the next night I go, same suit, right? And people were saying, "I saw you here last night. That is the best suit ever." And the band came up to me, did the same kind of thing. It was so much fun. And these are like the adventures I never would have done. And it wasn't really necessarily for lack of confidence, but it was just that when I was heavy, I didn't feel like I fit in. I was big, I stood out, I ate too much, I drank too much, just all of those things. And I knew that. And I felt like people watched me, or that there was maybe even a little bit of, if he didn't eat so much, he wouldn't be so fat kind of thing, right? But that was in my head. Nobody ever said that to me. That was in my head. And that was based on
Mm-hmm.
how I felt people were looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
And then post surgery, I looked at me differently, right? And I attributed those changes in the way that I perceived myself to other people as well. So now when people would look at me, I was in my head, I'm thinking, I look good. I feel good. I'm healthy. I'm wearing clothes that actually fit normally and are would be considered fashionable. And and I feel really good about me and I'm on a great journey and and I want this success to continue. So I'm going to do all the right things. And when I would now look at people's faces, I was thinking, they're thinking, hey, this guy's doing a good thing. Look how happy he is, and look how fit he looks, and those fashionable clothes he has on, and he's doing the right thing. And so it was really funny because not only did I feel more confident about myself, I attributed that confidence that's what other people were feeling for me as well. And Bill, I have to imagine in your journey, because you've accomplished so much, um, incredible. I would imagine that you've experienced some of that as well.
There are several times early on when I would be in a store and be walking with my head down a little bit and look up and excuse myself. Oh, I'm sorry. And realize I was talking to a mirror. I didn't recognize myself, because I think I was used to avoiding every mirror. I I knew I knew darn well what I looked like. I just didn't want to be reminded of it. And I think I probably said it before, but one of the things that when I was really large, and of course I didn't have the voice issue at that time. Um, I was probably one of the most confident, outgoing, boisterous, dominant personality kind of large person you could be because that was my both my offense and my defense. Um, and I got to say that when I went from 400 to 170, um, while I didn't mind being in a size 40 jacket or a size 30 pants or something, and I certainly liked the way I look in it, um, I think just the greatest victory for me was not having, was being able to be invisible and not be seen, so that I didn't have to gear up for every. I could sit this one out, or I can coast through this conversation or this meeting or this negotiation or whatever. I didn't have to first overcome the burden of being the obese guy, and that was such a relief that I didn't really want to pose for photographs, not the way I would have avoided them when I was obese, but because I wanted to, it's kind of like I'm going to be invisible. I want to be invisible, and you can't take a photo of an invisible guy. So, um, but yeah, definitely when it comes to performance, your body performance, whether it's wearing clothes or riding a bike. My my bike rides, that man who used to live 2 doors down from me, a friend, Rob, bike rider his whole life, great bike rider, the guru of bike riding, has taken a lot of novices like me and trained well on how to ride a bike. And he's just the Yoda of bike riding. So when I was riding from Seattle down to Portland, he said, "Hey, can I go with you?" So we flew our bikes out there and we were riding up the highest, the steepest hill I've ever ridden up. And I passed Rob. And I went, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." "What's the matter?" Go on, go on. "What's wrong?" I was just, I was just beating the hill better than he was. That was the kind of thing that, like, I got to the top and I thought, wow, it's kind of like getting in a fight with your dad or something. You don't really want to beat him up. You don't really want, there's just certain things. No, 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 no. I can't. But those kind of victories. And when he got up the hill finally, he looked at me and he's like, "You have graduated, young grasshopper." He gave me the secret Jedi handshake or whatever, and I made it. So that was a great feeling. And I'm
Amazing.
sure, Jeff, you probably bump into people because you're dealing on the physical level with so many people that,
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Those things are just amazing. I think, um, come back to something, there's a lot of that happening. And I think I wanted to come back to something that's hit me lately in the past couple of weeks. It's a phrase that's come up, and I've noticed this phrase a few times. And I think it's apropos of people going through this journey. And you guys both talked about it and sort of went with it. But a couple of weeks ago, I saw something, I think it was on Instagram. It was somebody said that, you know, uh, go towards the resistance. It's sort of like Bill had told me years ago, the first time I think Bill and I had a conversation on the phone maybe a year ago, and you'd sort of sing "Fuck the Cactus" kind of thing, but go towards the resistance. That's where your success is. And I've heard that phrase a few times lately, and I think that's kind of what you both sort of went towards the resistance. Um, but you did it in a way that wasn't, but you did it like you were excited to. Like Richard, you went towards like wearing a crazy suit and going to a show. The introvert in me just cringed like crazy. The extrovert thought it was cool. Climbing a super steep hill. I've done that on a bike, and it's never fun until you get to it's type two fun, right? It's only fun after it's over with. But those are both resistances in their own way. And I think I see a lot of my clients that I let people. This is the thought I've had is I sometimes feel like people don't think that when you go towards resistance, it has to be a bad thing. It has to be a painful thing. But in a way, I think it's a lot of times it's life just saying this is the way you need to go because you're thinking about it a lot, right? I want to do that, but there's that I want to do that, but thing, and the but the butt is your resistance. So kick your butt and go towards the resistance. That's trademark. Please don't use
yeah.
that. But does that make sense to you guys? I mean, have you sort of noticed that? Because I've noticed that I've had a few things in my life that have been going to the resistance has actually been a benefit versus trying to avoid them.
Yeah, I think that idea that the problem is the way,
Mhm.
the struggle is the way. Um, Well, it may not be true for everything. There's probably an element of truth in that for everything. Um, I mean, it makes sense. Nothing of value comes easy, typically. Um, you have to work to acquire. I mean, you weren't born walking. You fell down 1,000 times before you walked across the room the first time. So a lot of those things are, we try to make the process easy instead of understanding that it's just simple and it's really more a matter of discipline. And with topic we talked about before. But hence another saying, the corporate saying, just do it. You know, that's, I'm not motivated, just do it. I'm not happy, just be happy. You know, my kids, if you went to my boys and asked them, what's the secret of life? They would tell you, you just got to be happy. Because that's what we used to say in the car all the time. And I think that, you know, running toward the resistance, understanding that all progress is uphill. If you set your mind for that, it becomes just another fact, no different than, you know, it's light during the day and dark at night. Okay, and you accommodate accordingly.
Yeah.
At least that's my belief.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think it's an interesting way to go with that. I think the other thing was what I found fascinating from Richard was the fact that the way you perceived everybody else through your own thoughts. You know, that never occurred to me that you changed, therefore everybody outside you changed. And it occurred to me that uh, um, change doesn't happen to you, it happens from you, you know? And I think you just gave a good example of that.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience for me because I hadn't really thought about um, why I was, trying to be in other people's minds, right? Like, what do they think about me? They're thinking bad things about me, and I was attributing those thoughts to them, when in reality they probably didn't even think about me at all. And um, it was so much of that negative self-talk that we do. And I don't know, maybe it was deflection, maybe it was my way of, I don't know, getting even or getting angry with the world, because I felt okay about me, but other people didn't like me. Well, maybe that was me, right?
Right.
Maybe that was really me
Right.
who didn't like me, and I was attributing that to other people.
Easier.
Yeah, it is easier. And then what I found, like, after, so I was given this tool, and then all the other things that come with it, because it's not just the surgery, right? It's not just getting the surgery that is your success. That is not it at all. It's a piece of the entire experience, the journey. It's a tool. It's like, I mean, you couldn't pick a 9mm wrench and build a car with a 9mm wrench, but you definitely need it for different parts of the car, and you couldn't build a car without it. And so it's a complex experience, and there's no one single piece. But I talked about how I attributed what I was feeling about myself. I attributed that to other people. So when I started feeling better about myself, I attributed those thoughts to other people, and that gave me more confidence to do the things I wanted to do, to go out. And so, like Bill, like you said, be invisible. Yeah, there are times where I want to be invisible, but you know what? There's times when I don't. And I could tell you, like, when I went to Charleston, and that's my suit that I wore.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it got such crazy reactions. It was so cool that
You
I
wouldn't get lost in a crowd.
definitely not.
No.
But now that was my Christmas suit. And so it started this cascade of events. And then I also did one for New Orleans for Mardi Gras. But it started these series of events where success begets success, right? Successful people are successful. And when you start believing, like, negatively about yourself, I can't do that. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not tall enough. you're going to make it come true. You are. You will be successful in your negativity. You'll be successful in your failure, right? And it's that running towards the challenge. And like Jeff, you mentioned, the introvert in you is just cringing when I was talking about that. Well, I've always been kind of that quiet person too. And when I learned that I could express myself, that I could run toward the challenge, and guess what? I wasn't met with knives and bats and disintegrating words. I was met with enthusiasm, and people were like, I want to be like that. And it just encouraged me, and nobody should ever do that. but Jeff, I would imagine in your practice that you see people, and I think you even mentioned it in one of the earlier podcasts, where you see people who, I could never do that. I could never do that. And then when they do it, it's like, well, maybe I can do more. And so Jeff,
Yeah.
how do you set that first goal that's like seems unattainable, but you can get there?
It's a difficult one to do, I think, for a lot of people. It's difficult for me to, like, it's sort of like I can lead them to the goal, but they've got to believe in the goal. And and I would, I think part of what that is what you brought up, and it's making me think. And hell, I don't like to think, so thanks a lot, Richard. Um, um, but I kind of think that goals and stuff like that are set or not set, and I think a lot of it has to do with how people perceive other people's thoughts about them, right? And I think it's an empowering or disempowering thought to have. And I think for a lot of people, it's like, well, I want to do this. Like, I'll have somebody who wants to set a goal. I'm just making this up, but it's like, I want to hike to the top of Kilimanjaro, which is doable, but not easy. Um, but then there's the old idea, and I don't think people say this out loud, but I wonder how many people think to themselves, well, I can't do that. And the voice in their head is not their voice, it's the voice of somebody external to them that has made that statement to them. So the discipline is not there because someone else who was or is in a position of authority with them. I'm thinking of like somebody older that's maybe thinking of their parents when you're a kid saying, you can't do that. That's something you can't do. Or that's against what society allows. Like wearing a jacket and a coat like that, that's crazy and wild. That's unsocietal. You don't want to be that person. So people don't do it because it's a rock the boat kind of thing, or they think it's going to rock a boat. So they don't pursue a goal like that. I mean, I have a little bit of that. I grew up in a very conservative, don't rock the boat, what would the neighbors think kind of family. So you kind of have to get over that a little bit. For the ultimately, what you came at, Richard, was people didn't come at you with knives and withering words. It was just the opposite. But you have to have that little bit of boldness in you to go, okay, how we think um, isn't going to affect what I do. And I think that's a goal setting. It's part of goal setting. I think it's that idea that I can do it and genuinely believe in that I can do it. Not that I can't do it, but internally you're saying, nah, I can't do it because that's ridiculous. Why would I ever be able to do that? Which brings up that fat mind that we've talked about in the past, which is also an external, I think it's an external dialogue. This comes from other people telling you what you can and can't do and you believing it. Um, I think that also goes back to the fact that um, I think a lot of that comes back to the fact that a lot of people, uh, when you're a kid, you lean on your parents and you lean on your family on what's valid and what's not valid for you to do. And if you don't take the time to actually go back and think about what did they tell you, how much of that is valid, how much of that is your parents' fears and your grandparents' fears coming out of you, and then going, I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. I can do this. Just because I was told like doesn't mean I can't. Um, Going down pop psychology pathway right now and not being a therapist, but I see a lot of what you're saying and what people do for goal setting too. What they think they can't do compared to what other people said to them, right? Um, so there's a difficulty there, but I guess what it comes down to is once you step into the arena, once you start doing it, all of a sudden the confidence kicks in, and it may be a little bit of confidence. But I have a client right now that came to me. She had zero confidence in abilities or in her ability, and her strength was really bad. But we kept working at it, and now she's just like she's amazing. What she's doing, and it's just from the fact that she took a little bit and just a little bit at a time was willing to take a little bit of a gamble with it. And he's a different person in every way. And I think a more positive person, a more confident person, a stronger person physically, mentally. And I think it's just accepting the fact that I'm going to try this goal. I'm not going to listen to the negative part of me.
Well, Bill, so I was thinking about this, Jeff, as you were talking, and Bill's accomplishments, is bariatric sports, athlete of the year. That's huge. And I was thinking, like, setting those incremental goals, right? We don't tend to be the people who, climb to the top of the 3 meter board, 10 feet off the ground and jump in belly first, with our arms spread wide to just take the full brunt of it. We kind of dip our toes, and see if the water's okay, and a little bit before we jump in. But Bill, how did you like go from zero to riding across the nation?
I think the part of it is just always been my style or my habit to set a pretty audacious goal. Not that I always achieve them or anything like that, but I tend to do it because my process is very much one where I break down every project to 3 steps, and then every one of those to 3 more steps, and then every one of those to 3 more steps. I was always the guy who said I would plan a trip to the moon, say, the first iteration of my design of my program is I'm going to launch myself into space. I'm going to land on the moon. I'm going to return to Earth. Those are the 1, 2, 3 steps. Now, for the launch, I'm going to make 3 more steps. And then, when I've gotten my 9 steps, I'm going to make 3 steps out of each one of those until I've got it laid out where I'll get from here to the moon and back. But if you look at 1 step, it's very small. And that step's always doable. I don't know why I always did that, but I always tend to take my problems and then break them into tiny little pieces and then be able to, well, that's not so bad. That's not insurmountable. And then keep going. Now, what it does do, it causes you a tremendous amount of anxiety about a week before you kick off that ride. Because up to that point, it was all theoretical. And oh, yeah, I can plan the heck out of a bike ride. And then one day it hits me, wait a minute, I have to ride 65 miles a day for 8 straight days? Holy crap, who thought that up? But by then you're already so deeply into it. The planning, the logic of it is so strong that the emotional, oh wow, can I do this, is supported by a lot of facts. And I just find that's been my technique for problem solving forever. Break anything down into smaller and smaller and smaller problems and then solve them 1 at a time or 2 at a time if that's what's required. And I would say if you read the stories I write after the bike rides, they're always that way. Like, man, I was planning this, I was grooving on it, it was great. And then all of a sudden, 1, 2, 3, 4 days beforehand, I like, whoa, I actually have to do this now. But like I say, by then, it's a train already on a rail, already moving. That's kind of my technique. And it's one that I've developed because other ones didn't work and that one did work. So
I've heard that about like mountain climbers as well. One step, one step, one step. Keep your head down, one step. Don't look at the end because
right.
then it's overwhelming, right? So that makes a lot of sense. And I think that in our journey, in our bariatric journey, that is relevant because everything is just one step. And there's so many times when the challenges can just feel too much. It I don't feel well. I'm not getting enough to eat. I'm not getting enough to drink. My insides are realigned and I'm experiencing things like I don't know, Bill, if you have this, but the vagus nerve. So now I sneeze when I eat. I get like 2 or 3 bites in, I start sneezing. I'm like, oh, and
Yep.
it's a good indicator that I'm full. Well, but that never happened before, and you know, it's now I take it as an indicator, like I've eaten enough or I've consumed enough, and I call it the sneeze moment, right? I
Right.
stop just before. Well, unfortunately, that bite's like still in my mouth, right? But it's it's those little steps as we go through this bariatric journey that it's the only way we're going to get through it. But what I find interesting, and I'd look to both Jeff, the experience you've heard of it, and then Bill, your own personal experience. But um, it's like we're stepping in the dark much of the time, right? We can't really predict what our next step is going to feel like or be like, or how hard it's going to be, but we just know we need to do it. And like you said, Bill, that train has left the station. There's only one direction we're going here. And
Right.
and so I wonder, like I'm only a couple years out from my surgery, but and Bill, you're longer. Are you still experiencing those steps in the dark with respect to your bariatric journey?
Oh, sure. Sure. Um, Although the topic may be the same, like worrying about a regain or consistent working out or too much sugar slipping into my diet or whatever, the issues may be the same, but the reasons, the the complication from it, all that. I mean, I was 54 at surgery. I'll be 69 in a couple months. So, I've gone from being upper middle age to lower old age, I guess, in that time frame, which is makes me respond different to everything. It's all different. But yeah, I still have those moments, definitely, definitely.
Oh, okay. So I have to say I'm both excited and not so much about that. That it's
Well,
it's not going to
I
smooth out, but it's not bad, right?
no, no, it's kind of like the challenge of becoming a grandparent or becoming, something that those are new things, and those kind of changes keep coming. But yeah, they are all good. I mean, the things that you've confronted so far and overcome um, have given you strength, wisdom, knowledge, confidence, all of that. And there's nothing wrong with another helping of all those things. So the next barrier, the next new thing, the next discovery is just going to be full of more of them for you. Yeah, I'm telling you, embrace them because it means you're
Yeah,
doing it.
yeah, I have been, and that's the exciting thing about
Yeah,
it is
it's very
um,
exciting.
it really is, and I mentioned this a couple of podcasts ago. Um, I I feel better, more energetic, stronger than I did in my 30s, and I'm 62, and I'm lifting more weight now than I did when I was in my 30s. In my 30s, I was rocking it. And now I'm doing it and it just feels so good.
Mhm.
And then like one of the things that led me to Jeff is as a bariatric patient, you have a pouch, right? And so you've got a smaller area or a smaller bag to fill, if you will. But you still need to get that protein. So just to survive, it's 125 grams of protein for a normal male. Oh my gosh,
Right.
that's like a football. And I think about I got to eat that every day. And then so Jeff, here's where I'm looking to you. And again, this is what brought me to you originally. What 3 years ago now. Um, how do you get the nutrition and the hydration in a 4-ounce pouch when you need 125 grams of protein just to survive? You need more protein if you want to actually build muscle. And I haven't even mentioned the gallon and some change of liquid you need to drink. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear a lot of people. It's probably one of the most frustrating aspects. I would think, especially people just starting out in bariatrics. I hear it all the time. How the hell am I supposed to do this? They say drink water, but don't drink when you eat, but eat all the time, but don't eat all the time, but eat and drink. And I get it. I get it. And I can see how people get overwhelmed um, with it very easily, especially because you went from uh, eating whatever you wanted to, drinking whatever you wanted to, whenever you wanted to. And after the surgery, everything changed immediately. And it's sort of that. And I think there's a lot of that stepping into the dark, stepping into a new world. And I guess I can come back to that. Uh, I like the idea of you saying stepping into the dark, and I like Bill's idea of the idea that you're stepping into it is just building onto confidence and knowledge. Even if you fall flat on your face, you learn something. But I, I think a lot of people get frustrated. I think there's a failure rate, and I'm using failure as regaining your weight, is the fact that I think for a lot of people, stepping into the darkness is very scary. And sometimes it's better that you stay with the demon you know versus the unknown. And I get it. I don't uh, make light of the fact that people don't do get the success they wanted out of their surgery because there's a lot to this in terms of stepping into the darkness or stepping into this whole world, like you were just saying. I eat when you eat all these restrictions, all these new things you have to do, are overwhelming. And if you don't break them down, like Bill was talking about, or you don't find a method that works for you, I see how this is a frustration and how you can go back to where you were and you can feel like you're the failure. Um, and I don't think that's the case. But it's talking about just because in life, if you think about just life in general, every moment is stepping into the dark. You don't really have an idea what's going to happen in the next 30 seconds. I don't think an asteroid's going to hit outside my window, but I don't know. An asteroid's not going to hit outside my window. But it's that's sort of life, but we all try to live it. We all try to control it. We all try to hang on to what we have and be controlling of it. I mean, this is getting it sort of Zen Buddhism is sort of you have to let go in order to actually be alive. But it's that stepping into the darkness. I see that happening a lot. I see where, I don't know where I'm going with this, but this has sort of been in my mind for a lot lately. It's sort of just transitions, especially transitions are the scary part. And I don't have to tell you two that you've lived a massive transition, both of you. I think you've been positive on what's coming out the other side of it. But I can't think that from you, either one of you, you went into this feeling extremely 100% confident in it all. I don't know how you could have. I mean, maybe you did. I don't know. Bill, I guess, you kind of went in with it that way, but I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. Is that true?
No, so
I don't
I
know. Words in Bill's mouth or Richard's mouth.
no, and sorry to interrupt, Bill. There, my pre-surgery was a year, and normally it's just a matter of weeks. So it's like 6 to 8 weeks, right? And you get a couple psych evals and a couple of meetings with nutrition, and a couple of this and that, and it's pretty mechanical for them, right? They say They hand you that piece of paper. Here's your diet for 2 weeks before. Here's your diet for 6 months after. And they just kind of go through it and they expect you to know it and understand it, right? And know what it means. Well, I had my surgery during COVID, and so the hospitals were closing and opening for elective surgeries or non emergency surgeries, and so I was actually like over a year in prep for my surgery. And that 2 week liquid diet that you have to be on before, I was on it for 6 weeks because they kept moving my date. I was like, oh man. But so you're right, Jeff. I mean, you just don't know. You can anticipate, you can try to do these things. But I love Bill's attitude, and I want to hear more about that. It's like embrace it, right? Let it be the energy that moves you to the next thing, right? As opposed to trying to fight it, let it carry you. And so, Bill, I mean, you've got to, that's got to be like your whole life, everything you do, right?
I know for me that it was January of 2009 when I had made the decision that I would pursue weight loss surgery. And it was October of 2010 before I had surgery. So 18 months or more, I guess. And I think that it was in that period of time that I set the stage for my success because I I took classes, I took courses at the hospital on diet and nutrition. I took a human behavior class. Um, I got educated as much as I could, but probably the best thing for me was I had surgery in Michigan, but I lived in Ohio. So I didn't, I had to be in charge of everything I did. I had to be the one to make sure I got the information, that they emailed it to me, or that just, and then because it was just kind of an anonymous, an email or something coming in, I wasn't looking at a person telling me how and what would happen. In order to get more of that, I had to kind of outsource all that. And so I had 100% confidence in the medical part of it, the operation itself, the medical procedure. I had talked to my surgeon and I was comfortable with him. And I had gone through enough of a process to determine that surgery was a good approach for me, that I I didn't have much apprehension about going forward with it. I did a little bit of role playing ahead of time, a lot of visualization, and I felt that prepared me as I went into surgery. Now the reality is, I didn't have a clue, you know, um, but sometimes just the belief that you understand and the confidence or the comfort that comes from, I guess, the peace that comes from feeling confident because you believe you have an image of what's coming, even when it ultimately ended up being incomplete. That really, I didn't really have much suffering or problem until after surgery. The first week is always rough, and after that, um, after the first week, things went pretty well medically. But yeah, mentally and emotionally, there's a that was, I think, being a guy that was very physically active a lot of my life, even after I gained weight, pain and body discomfort and stuff. Yeah, yeah, my side hurts. Yeah, my this hurts, whatever, pain. It's part of the identity of being a guy to me, just that kind of pain, I guess. But the mental and the emotional side of it, I was not prepared for at all. And I had more anguish from what I was experiencing emotionally than I did from any physical pain. Definitely. Some of it's self doubt. Um, Not necessarily doubt that what I did was the right thing for me, but doubt like, can I pull this off? Can I see it through? Will I honor the tool that I've been given? And so for me, yeah, the hardest part, I forgot what the question was already, but the hardest part for me was the mental and emotional adjustments and strains and the acceptances and confrontations with myself that I had to go through, but they were the most valuable. So again, I'm not quite sure what launched me into that little screed there, but I definitely wanted to share that people, always talk about how hard it is physically, and yeah, it was tough. But and since we're talking to guys, if you if you did if you did a sit up challenge one day or something, your stomach hurt about like the next day, about like mine did after surgery. You can tough through that stuff unless you have a bad complication. But again, emotional and mental issues were the most difficult thing for me.
I was very fortunate that my surgery was focused or was brought on. It was a result of medical issues. So cholesterol, blood pressure, diabetes, all of those chronic conditions. And so I had comorbidities and, I was headed towards heart failure. I was headed towards renal failure, just um, a long, slow, painful, miserable death. And when I had my surgery, it was to manage those issues. I knew that I was going to lose weight, and I was very excited about that, but it wasn't the focus of my surgery. And so, what I found to be really interesting is that you can objectively measure your cholesterol and you can objectively measure your blood pressure. And so, when I saw success in those things, I I knew I had done the right thing, right? Um, and I didn't have the anguish about, am I going to lose the weight? How am I going to keep the weight off? Did I do the right thing? Look at my flabby skin. I didn't have that anxiety at first, okay? Because I was looking at objective measures, cholesterol, blood pressure, my diabetes. My A1 went below 4%. They don't even measure below 4%.
Wow.
And that's another issue because your brain is like sugar, 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 sugar all the time when you're that low. Plus, you just don't have any energy. So I manage those back. So I'm like 5'2", 5'3" now in my A1 and my cholesterol. I got my cholesterol down to 66 total. Again, another problem. You don't have enough energy. So now I'm at 100 and all my LDL, HDL are all in the right proportions. My blood pressure, I suffered from low blood pressure symptoms for a long time. The spinning head, the metallic taste in your mouth, and instability, because I couldn't get my systolic, the top number. I couldn't get it above 95.
I have that problem.
Yeah, and so now I'm. My doctor says eat more salt. I'm like, what? All my life. And so now I'm better. I'm up like 105. So it's really done well. But it was interesting for me how it transitioned because, like I said, my reason for going into bariatric surgery was medical in terms of those objective measurements. It wasn't about weight, although weight was a factor in all of that, right? Because obesity.
Sure.
Yeah. But then once I managed all of those conditions to the point that my doctors were concerned I had gone too far, right? That I needed to start kind of coming back. I started noticing how much people would say, you've lost 105 pounds. You look great. And I felt great. And then all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, I did lose 105 pounds. Wow. And And I didn't have that same anxiety of like, am I going to lose enough weight or am I going to lose as much weight as I want? Because I never thought about my weight. And now where I'm at is I want to maintain the weight that I'm at. And so now weight is a focus. It's not my primary focus, but it's certainly a consideration everything I do. And again, it's that stepping in the dark. It's like, I remember the first time I ate pancakes after my surgery. I was on my third bite when I had to run to the bathroom and it all came back up. It was like, okay, pancakes are off the list. Dang it. They were off the list when I was diabetic and they're off the list now. I love pancakes or loved them. But I'm sure, Jeff, I'm sure that you see that kind of stuff, that those nutrition changes. And I have to imagine people just talk about that like crazy, like, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, or whatever.
It's really the key part. I think we all know that it's like the biggest focus on everything that comes to surgery is, can I eat what I can't eat on that? But I think the interesting part that you came up with is how you focus, how you had a different focus on bariatric surgery. And I think that's an interesting way to go about it. And I don't think that's this is a marketing thing for bariatric surgery docs. It needs to be more of a health thing than a weight thing. But even if it isn't, I think having that mindset, switching the mindset a little bit, saying, okay, what is this for me? Is this a weight thing or is it a health thing? And if you're looking at it as a health thing, you change how you view the success of the surgery. And also I think you've changed the view of how you move forward with the surgery or with the tool. And so I think that's an interesting way to change this. So if someone's listening and they have an idea, they're a little freaked out about their weight, maybe it's more along the lines of, well, let's look at your health. The change the view on that. I like the conversation. I think it's great. I think we've been going for about an hour. And whoever is listening to this needs to wake up. Just get on your day. But I would like to continue down this path, but I think it's a good place to stop for now, unless you guys have something else you want to bring in. But thank you guys for being here for another conversation about this. I think I appreciate the way we're talking about this, and I think this is the path we're on. Again, if you're listening, you want to add something or you have a conversation that you want us to talk about or be a part of, please feel free to suggest, put something in the comments or whatever it is. Otherwise, thank you for listening and thank you two for being a part of this.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad to be here and I hope everybody subscribes and I hope that they give us suggestions. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, guys.